I've been in love with Claude Code since the very first week it came out. It's completely changed the way that I write software, as it has done for so many other people. But there are a few things that I wish it would do. I would love it if my agents were able to invoke themselves, either by a schedule, ideally under their own control, or triggered by an external event like a webhook. I'd really love it if I could speak to my agents over Discord or Slack, so that I don't have to be in front of my laptop. But I want it such that when I talk to them over Discord or Slack, I get the same exact experience as if I'm using Claude Code on my laptop, with all the right sub-agents, the Claude.md, skills, all that kind of stuff. And then thirdly, I want to be able to control dozens, if not hundreds, of agents in a fleet. Ideally a self-organizing fleet that can add, remove, and edit agents as it goes. That's why I built herdctl. Herdctl is an orchestration layer for Claude Code. You can think of it as being somewhat analogous to Kubernetes and kubectl, after which it is partially named. It's not doing quite the exact same things, but some of the concepts are similar. We are coordinating a fleet of agents in this case rather than containers, and we have a centralized way of keeping them up and running and monitoring them and restarting them if they need to be. herdctl agent configurations are just YAML files, and they are thin wrappers around the Claude Code, or rather the Claude Agents SDK, upon which this project is based. At its simplest, a herdctl fleet could have a single agent, in this case a very, very simple Hello World agent. We can pull in as many agents as we like, but in this case we've only defined a single one, the Hello World agent. If we look at the Hello World agent itself, it's just YAML, and in fact most of these YAML entries are passed directly through to the Claude Agents SDK. If you look at the SDK documentation, you'll see most of these fields in there. Most of these are optional. Anything that you can pass into the Claude Agents SDK, you can pass in here. And so we can do tool whitelisting, blacklisting. We can pass in specific MCP configurations for specific agents, and so on. This is about as simple as it can get. This particular one, it is the Hello World agent. Typically, we wouldn't actually build an agent like that because it's kind of pointless, but it does illustrate how it works a little bit. So, coming over to the command line now, I've installed the herdctl npm package globally, and whereas I would normally run herdctl start to start my fleet, and then it will either run schedules as it needs to or react to triggers like webhooks or incoming messages from things like Discord. Instead of that, we're just going to trigger it this time and pass in a specific prompt just to see what goes on. herdctl is less than a week old at this point, and so I will probably go and tidy up some of the formatting of this. But basically you can see that we sent the message in, that the job was triggered, and that we got the response back from Claude Code in the end. Hi Ed, great to meet you, blah, blah, blah. Okay, cool. That could have been triggered by a schedule, that could have been triggered by a Discord message. But one of the really, really cool things about this system is that I can run herdctl sessions now. Every single time that herdctl invokes an agent, it tracks the Claude Code session that was created for that agent and allows you to resume it. And so what that lets me do is I can come in and do herdctl sessions resume, and I'm going to come right back into that exact conversation. Now, in this case, it's Hello World, not all that useful, but you can imagine that if you had some agentic process happening as a result of whatever schedule or trigger that you have, and you can see that it did most of the stuff right, but maybe not everything, you can see how useful it would be to be able to get right back into this specific conversation again. And so herdctl gives you that capability, whether the task was run from a schedule, from Discord, or any other route. Moving on to a slightly more advanced example now, though still a fairly simple one. Let's imagine that we want to have a price checker agent. Now, normally if you're checking prices and there's an API available to get the price from, use the API, it's way easier. But other times you can't do that if you're monitoring a forum or something for something secondhand and you don't want to keep going there yourself, or write your own screen scraper. This kind of agent can do that pretty well for you. In this particular example, and all of the examples that I'm going to show you are in the SDK, we just have a system prompt which tells this agent that we're trying to buy this chair and that it should look at stables.com and ikea.com. Why those two? Because those are about the only ones I could find who do not block Claude Code when it goes and searches for stuff. And so they're probably going to get our money as a result. Part of what this particular agent does is we tell it that it can write a metadata.json. And this is an early version of a concept that I'll be bringing into herdctl, which is a bidirectional communication pathway between the herdctl fleet and an individual agent. And so every time an agent is triggered, clearly it's getting some communication from the fleet, what the prompt was, and a few other bits of information. But the agent also wants to be able to respond with data beyond just a text response. And so in this case, we want to know what the price was that we found, where is the URL that the user should be directed to go and buy it, or that another agent could be directed to go and buy it, and so on. And we have an initial basic convention for how this gets used, such that in the hooks down the bottom here, for this particular agent, we have before and after run hooks at the moment. Probably we'll add some more. The first one basically just shells out so that you can see in real time if a deal was found or not. The second one is a Discord notification hook. Now that's not the full bi-directional chat with Discord, it's just a notification. We have both options. And there are a few of these built in after run hook types, shell scripts, Discord, one or two other things. We'll add more as things go by. In this particular case, you can see that the schedule has been set to go and check every 4 hours. And we have set a whitelist and a blacklist for the tools that it should use. Most of the configuration for this price checker agent is just Claude agents SDK config. Things like schedules and hooks, though, those are added in by herdctl. Stepping forward a bit further, though, I want a fleet of these things, right? So I have a price checker agent example. It's a little bit contrived. It'll go and see if I can afford to buy a chair or not. But also, I live in Florida, and we tend to get hurricanes here sometimes, and I would love to know when one is on the way without having to check the news all the time. So I have created a hurricane watcher, and what the hurricane watcher really ought to do, and will be able to do soon, is in hurricane off season for half the year, maybe wake up once a month and do a quick job to see, have we been hit by an asteroid and therefore there are no more hurricanes or other, crazy events. But for the most part, probably it doesn't do anything 6 months out of the year. And then come March or April or something, it should change its schedule and wake up every week and start checking for stuff. And if it knows that a hurricane's on the way to hit my house, it will change its schedule again and go and check every few hours. And it can, of course, alert me, whenever anything bad happens. So we have this hurricane watcher as well, and it has, the kind of basic system prompt that just does what I just told you it would do. Right now, it's got a 6-hour schedule. It's kind of an example. What happens, though, if we want to combine multiple of these agents together? That's where this multi-agent example comes in. So herdctl is able to run probably not any number of agents, but a large number of agents. And it's able to go and pull those out from other directories. So in this case, this multi-agent example does not have any of its own agents. What it does have, though, is it pulls in the Hurricane Watcher agent and the Price Checker agent, and then it passes in a few overrides. So we get the base configuration that we'd seen already, but we can override it. So, for example, we can change the schedule, we can disable the hooks, and in this case what I've done is I have given these agents both the ability to go and have bidirectional chat in Discord, both in some specific server and channels, and also the ability to do DMs. So when I come into this multi-agent directory and run herdctl start to initialize all the agents, we start to see something a bit more interesting happening. So we've created Discord connectors for both of the agents. You can see that everything got spun up okay. And eventually we get a notification saying, okay, 2 out of 2 agents are up and running. There's 2 schedules that will be run. What happened then was that the price checker went and ran a schedule. And then shortly after that, I sent it a Discord message saying, hey, is it a good time to buy that chair? There's my message. Again, I will clean up this output in a future release. If I go into Discord now and go and look in that price checker, that's that message that I sent to it. And so what happened then is Delboy, our price checker, he went and looked at the current prices for me, did all this stuff, and he sent me back these messages one by one, and eventually said, yeah, go buy it from Staples. It's a great deal right now, or whatever, right? Delboy, the price checker, was able to read its context, look at its system prompt. When I say its context, I mean it has a context.md file that it knows to update. And so every time it's invoked, it keeps a little diary of what it did last time, so it doesn't have to reinvent the wheel each time. This is kind of a hint in the direction of self-evolving agents. This particular one doesn't change its prompt, but it could do, just in the same way as it could change its schedule. Now, in the real world, you may not choose to have a price checker bot inside of Discord. You might just use the Discord notification hook instead. It's nice having bidirectional communication this way so that I don't have to go into a Claude Code session on my laptop to talk to this price checker though. So no harm, no foul. It's quite useful to have. Okay, so far we've looked at a couple of kind of contrived examples of agents that are doing things within example directories of the SDK. But what if we want to integrate this with existing Claude Code projects that we're already working on? That's what this next example shows you how to do. So I have another open source project called bragdoc. It doesn't really matter what it does, but it's an open source project that I mostly use Claude Code to write for me. And what I've done is I've created a new herdctl configuration for a bragdoc engineer, and I've pointed it at the bragdoc workspace on my computer, what directory bragdoc repo is cloned into. And then I ran herdctl start. So if I go into my terminal now and take a look at this bragdoc engineer, I ran herdctl start up here. It did the normal thing, right? So it's got a single agent in this case. You can see everything's up and running. I sent it a message initially saying something along the lines of, what's the current state of play? What branch are we on? And it went back and it looked at all this stuff and it sent me a couple of messages saying everything's great. So let's tell it something else then, shall we? Bragdoc engineer, and let's use dictation. Please go take a look at GitHub ticket number 347 and implement it. Before you get started, give me a summary of what you're going to do. Make sure that you use a new Git branch and that you stage commit with sensible message and push and make a PR for the changes. Okay, I tend to use Whisperflow for this. It's much easier than typing. So you can see that bragdoc engineer is already typing his response. Hopefully the first thing it will do is give me its understanding of what it's going to do first. Let's see. Okay. Update the tagline to whatever. Okay, so it's giving me a summary, and now it's getting to work. So this is the normal Claude Code loop, right? So what we're really doing here is that we are, under the covers, we have dispatched a query to the Claude Agents SDK, and then we're listening to streaming messages that come back from it, and we're streaming those back into Discord in the same way that we stream them back into the CLI output as you're watching it live. And so these come in message by message. We get the typing hint, and everything looks good. And as this agent goes forward, it's going to go ahead and do a full implementation of this. Okay, summary of changes I'll make. I'm going to fast forward the video at this point and come back in a moment when we're going to see how it finished up. All right, so about 2 minutes went by, something like that, and it has finished. It went through and did everything I wanted it to do, just as if I was sat there at my laptop itself. Now, probably anything complex you're not going to want to do this way, but for basic things like changing a tagline or whatever it is, or for ideation, or for asking the bot questions, this clearly works incredibly well and is really, really valuable and useful, and means you can code from your hot tub if you really wanted to. The bragdoc engineer example is much closer to a real-world example than the ones we've seen so far. But you can imagine that this is not the only agent that we want for a project like bragdoc. Bragdoc's a career co-pilot app for software developers. And there's a bunch of these things out there at the moment. And so one thing that would be super useful would be to have some kind of a competitive research agent, which you could imagine would just spin itself up on a schedule, maybe once a day. After doing the initial discovery of competitors, it would also do vigilant scans to make sure it can discover any new ones that pop up. But maybe every day or every 2 days, we can go and check all the competitors and see if they've released new features, blogs, keep an eye on these people, really. And then it could have a second schedule where once a week it will email you or the CEO or whoever a report of the current state of play and any gaps that have developed between us and competitors. Similarly, you could have like a product manager kind of agent. Obviously, it's only a small amount of what a product manager does, but if this agent could go and look in all the usual places, Reddit, Hacker News, and so on, for people talking about your product and either automatically engage with them or escalate to a human to engage with if necessary, that could be extremely useful too. And so I see a future quite soon where we have a dozen, let's say, specific agents attached to a project like that who can be largely left to get on with it by themselves, given the right prompts and the right schedules, the right ability to update their own prompts and to collaborate together. I believe that you could actually have an essentially automated business to a large extent with these new digital workers. The final example I want to show you is one that's just a bit of fun, really. I have gathered together all of the original Star Trek captains. There are too many these days, so sorry, new guys, you're not going to be on the list. And added in Captain Spock and the Gorn for good measure. And each of these is basically just a role-playing Claude Code, basically with a Discord chat connection. And it's told, hey, you are Spock, or you are Captain Janeway, or whatever. And so I've got all these thrown into a Star Trek demo here. And that's what all these online captains are up here. So basically, each of those is just a Discord app with a bot. Right now, I've gone and set them all up manually. It takes about a minute each one. In fact, it took longer to find the right picture for each of these bots than it took to actually create them in the Discord UI. It's really, really easy. And so by doing this, we have one bot per agent. And so it feels more like a real team rather than having like one bot that is the entire project and could delegate to a sub-agent or something like that. So here, like, I started stirring some stuff up, like Kirk and Picard, which one of you would win a fight. They had different experiences and perspectives on that. The Gorn was not happy that I suggested that James Kirk may have beaten him up. Captain Janeway, I asked her who is smarter, Spock or Tuvok, so let's go off to, let's stir some things up here. So let's go and talk to Kirk. Hey, Captain. Captain Janeway secretly told me that Tuvok is smarter than Spock. What do you think about that? He may not agree with that, I don't know. It's just a bit of fun. You can have these things, in theory, talking to each other. They are trying to do that. It's not quite triggering yet. As you can see up above, Kirk did in fact say, Ambassador Spock, do you want to weigh in this? And right now herdctl is not picking that up and sending that through to the Spock agent. But that should be something that can happen at some point in the future. One of the nice things about herdctl and indeed Claude Code is that you can run them anywhere. So for this particular set of agents, I'm actually running herdctl on a Proxmox instance on my home lab. And so I've got these agents running in a completely containerized environment with no access whatsoever to my laptop or anything like that. And what I've done is I have kept that running, and these captains plus the Gorn and Spock are waiting to talk to you, if you get there in time, in the Star Trek demo channel here. The way I've done that is I just installed herdctl on the Proxmox container that I created. You could do this inside of Docker. You can do it any way you like. You could run herdctl in the cloud. And then I gave it a $20 budget with an Anthropic API key. So once that budget runs out, no one can talk to these people anymore. So that's a quick introduction to herdctl. To recap, herdctl is an orchestration layer for Claude Code. It allows you to easily run agents according to a schedule, even one that they can alter themselves, and in reaction to events like webhooks. It allows you to talk to your agents via chat applications like Discord and soon via Slack. And it allows you to coordinate and run and iterate on entire fleets of agents that can be run on your laptop, on a cloud service somewhere, on a Proxmox instance, or anywhere you like. herdctl has only been around for about a week. It's definitely not production ready in any sense, but hopefully you can already see some of the capabilities that it brings. It's entirely open source under the MIT license, is available via NPM, and to find out more you can go to herdctl.dev.